Well, hello and welcome to the Sikich Salesforce Winter 26, your guide to key updates and release strategy essentials. My name is Courtney Maxwell. I am one of the client experience managers here at Sikich. For those of you who do not know me, hello. It's a pleasure to meet you. And with that, I'd love to introduce my team and give you a little brief background on Sikich and Salesforce. On our call today is Mike Sayers, who is one of our senior solution consultants, Salesforce. He is joined by Adele Stager-Hughes, who is another one of our senior solution consultants, myself, and Chris Masonius. And Chris Masonius is an account executive for Salesforce and works with all of our new clients and several of our larger enterprise Salesforce clients. So hello to everyone, and we are all pleased to have you here today. Just to give you a little bit of background on Sikich and Salesforce, we have been a Salesforce partner since 2007. So you have a lot of Salesforce experience on this team. Industry surge, we have a huge push this year on insurance, life sciences, private equity, wealth management, and manufacturing. And as you can see, our services range from Agentforce, Data Cloud to Marketing Cloud. We are working on some very exciting new AI projects. So if you have any ideas, any Salesforce initiatives or any AI initiatives that you're possibly interested in integrating into your CRM this year, I welcome you and encourage you to reach out to one of us and allow us to have an exploratory conversation. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn the ball over to my teammate, who's going to go ahead and get started on the technical changes that we have coming this winter.
Okay, thank you, Courtney. Hi, everyone. I'm Mike Sayers, Senior Solution Consultant here at Sikich. I'll just quickly echo, even if you don't have any AI initiatives, one of the biggest support engagements that we're providing clients is defining use cases. It's very important when it comes to use cases with AI. So with that, I'm going to quickly go over some of the critical updates in this Winter 26 release. And first up, it is the official end of an era where Salesforce is going to decommission any support or any sorts of improvements to Process Builder or workflow rules. This has kind of been known for a while, but with this release, it marks the official end of it. So if it's only going to impact any orgs that are currently running workflow rules or process builders, mostly in terms of the support. If you are interested in transitioning, we have helped a lot of clients through that process. If you just want to get a little information, you can scan the QR code on the screen. That'll take you to a helpful guide. So with this release, the ICU local formats are officially taking hold. So this is going to align dates, times, numbers with the international standards. So if your org was created before Winter 2020 and you're running any Apex or Visualforce APIs, you're going to want to check and see that they are above version 45. The same thing with any sort of applications that you might have installed. You're going to want to double check all those applications and make sure that you have the latest release. So how we would typically prepare is we would go into a sandbox and we would enable the ICU local formats. We would run any automated scripts or tests to check for those API versions and make updates accordingly. Again, we are helping a lot of clients with this transition. So if we can be of any assistance, don't hesitate to reach out. Okay, another kind of quirky update with this Winter 26 release is if you have users that you're assigning the flow user permission in the user object, that's no longer going to work going forward. So you would need to create a specific permission set for that user and give them the ability to run flows, which is a permission in the app settings area. This does not impact any users that are already system admins. Clearly, they're going to be able to do almost anything inside of the org. But this change is essentially impacting every organization. If you wanted to get ahead of it, you can go to setup, release updates, and then restrict user access to run flows. And then what you're going to want to do is create a quick run flows permission set, and then assign it to any users who you might be giving the ability to run flows in the org. And that is it for the critical updates for this Winter 26 update. There are some more that if you wanted to read through the documentation, you could find them, but these were the ones that we wanted to highlight as being most critical. So now I'm going to continue on and go to some of the new features that are coming out with Winter 2026. So this one is a good one. List views are a very powerful tool inside of Salesforce, and with this release, Salesforce has made them even more powerful by allowing now the ability to sort list views by up to 5 columns. This feature has previously been in beta, but with this release, it's going to be fully available. And what you would do is you would go to any list view on an object that you're looking at, click, locate the little arrow buttons that are highlighted in the screenshot, click it, and then you can start to set up the different columns you would want to sort by and watch the magic happen. Okay, so enable field history tracking for users is coming out in a beta form. So this feature will allow you to track up to 20 fields on a user object. So you can see these are some sensitive fields. Sometimes you can just manage and make sure that nothing is being changed on those. Because it's in beta, you would need to enable it, and you would do so by going to setup and then searching for user management settings, and then enabling the field history tracking for users. With this release, there's also going to be enhanced field tracking, which should start to make all the admins' lives a little bit easier. In setup, you would search field history, and you're going to see everything in a simplified sort of one-page navigation where you can go through all of your objects. You can expand the objects, and you would have the ability to click the fields that you're going to want to track. It'll also give you an overview component at the very top of the page that will tell you how many objects you're tracking, how many fields you're tracking, and such. And then as you open up the objects, you will see that Salesforce is going to start to give you the ability to see which sort of fields they're categorizing as high risk and things that you should really pay attention to, as well as segregate or display any fields that are sensitive in terms of data. So this improvement should be very helpful to admins that are looking to establish a good field tracking history process. Dashboards are getting reference lines in this update. So previously, reference lines were relegated mostly to reports. You could add in a benchmark line in a chart and track your metrics against that. In this release, Salesforce is bringing that over to dashboards, which should be very handy because you can have multiple reports with multiple dash or reference lines that you're tracking against. And then in addition, you have the ability to choose different colors if you wanted for your reference lines. So this should be a welcomed improvement in the dashboard area. And then finally, for all of our admins out there, this Winter 26 release has had a lot of focus on flow updates. My colleague Adele is going to give you a demo on some of these updates, but they are very user-friendly, a lot more advanced than they have been in the past. Some of the higher level ones that we're going to highlight is that With screen flows, you're going to have the ability to add your company's branding to it. So you're not going to be relegated to just the standard color scheme that Salesforce has given you in the past. You can now add brand identity to these screen flows. Some other interesting features are you can trigger a flow to run with an action such as attaching a file to a record. And then it's gotten a little bit easier when it comes to sending off emails inside of flows, where you can put email collection components or email collection components into a single line or input data field, as opposed to having to put a collection in one input field and then entering individual emails in another one. Now they can all go in a single input field in the flow, separated by a comma. So you can have your collection and then any specified emails that you want that flow to send off to. So with that, we can start to look and see how that feels. I'm going to pass it over to Adele, and she'll walk us through our demo.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. Let me go ahead and share my screen, and I'll get this pulled up here. All right. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and show this in our sandbox we have here. So hopefully most of y'all know, if you have current projects or if you're prospective customers, we use our Salesforce to track our project timelines and stuff. So we have a org here. We have these epics and user stories we use to just like track a project as you go through. So I'm going to use that org to kind of go do a little bit of a demo here. The first thing I want to go ahead and show is if we go to setup here, one of the things that Salesforce quoted as a new release item is apparently a new and improved homepage for setup. To me, it looks exactly the same, but apparently it does have this new drop down here where from the homepage, you can go ahead and create users, multiple users, objects, tabs, email templates, and flows directly from here. So that is a little bit of improvement. They were really touting this as like totally redesigned, but it looks almost exactly the same. So that's fun, but they did add that little button. So that's great. And then a lot of items we're going to go through are with the flows. So I'm going to go ahead and open 2 flows because the big changes we're going to go through here are with debugging flows. So just to give you a little bit overview of this flow in general, this is a screen flow. The whole purpose is that when you are on a user story and you want to update the status, it will show you the status field. You can choose your new status and set a status note. Here's what Mike was talking about earlier for the preview style on here. So the default, like the blue background for basic Salesforce is this lightning blue. If you do have different branding for your org, like for example, for our Experience Cloud site, we have different branding. You can kind of see like the font changes, it looks a little different. So you can kind of preview how that looks. And that's in the apps and brandings part of Salesforce. So you'd go ahead and set that up. And once you set it up, you can kind of see what the screen flow is going to look like with that branding. So I think like the seasonal ones, different colors and things like that. So it just gives you different like fonts and that kind of thing. So if you did want to see kind of how those would look like, you could do that there. They also on the last release, they did this preview size, so you could change like how it's going to look. Like on an app, it's going to on the phone, it's going to look like that. If it's on like a quick action, it's going to look like that. If it's just on a full width thing, it'll look like that. So that was previous release as well. But yeah, so the purpose of this screen flow is that you click a button, it updates the status, it pulls you this screen here, you update your status, you give your status notes, and then it will go ahead and update that user story with that information. So what I'm going to show demo here is the debugging feature of this. So I'm going to go ahead and hit debug here. And first change, usually you hit debug, it opens it in a new window. So the first thing is that it is now going to pop this on the left-hand side instead. This kind of looks similar to what it looks like before, but it's just on the left-hand side. I'm going to go ahead and grab a record ID for a user story. So I can go ahead and test it with this user story here. And quick tip, if you ever need an ID of any record, it's always in the URL of the page once you're looking at it. So I'm gonna go ahead and do this. So you can still do the normal debugging stuff. So if you have it turned on that you can run it as a different user, you can still do that. You would do the latest release and all that kind of stuff. In this case, these are all my variables in here that allow input. This is the only one that's required for me to like move on. But if you had any like more, they would show up here. If you had less, it would show up here as well. I'm gonna go ahead and hit run. So again, it stays in the same screen. If I want to go back to my flow, I can still see my flow using this little tab here. So that's one of the changes that they made, is that you can go back and forth. And then I'm in a screen flow. So as I make changes, what's actually happening will show up on the left. So we can see before I get to my screen, it does this get records here in my flow. So if I go here, it then shows the results of that get records. So here is that. It was able to find that record. So that's nice. I go back to my screen. I can go ahead and say I want to change it to ready for review and give a note here. We'll just say this is a note. And then I will hit next just because I'm debugging here. And you can kind of see on the left, again, it continues with debugging. So the whole purpose of this is that you can, as you're going through doing flows, you're making sure they work before you deploy them, right? So this is just kind of more streamlined way to do that. I can go through and see what they selected for navigation, what they selected here. So it looks like I selected ready for review for status. And then I said, this is a note for my status notes. So that's kind of helpful there. And then again, it updated some variables here. We have a formula that adds the date next to this is a note, and then it updates that. And then we have where it actually updates those fields, right? So that's just the flow doing what it needs to do. But if I did run into any errors or anything like that, it would show up here on the side to give me more details. So that's just kind of how it looks there. Also, there's these kind of things at the top where I can hit expand all. It'll expand all these here for you. If I wanted to collapse all, it'll collapse all that for me. So it's kind of helpful, and it keeps track of it as you're going along. And you can go back and forth from the flow canvas. Another thing you can do is if you want to like view this on canvas, you hit this drop down next to the thing itself, view on canvas. It'll show you which actual record that is for. So that's kind of handy. Didn't have that necessarily before. And then you can also do these little things at the top where if it's helpful, you can show API names. In some cases, if you have fields that are named similarly and you need to like see the API name, you could do that. So you kind of see now it's showing some of those API names in here for the screens and things. I'll show this governors limits in a second, but you can also do the transaction boundaries. So that gives it more in terms of like a coding way. Like if you're doing Apex, things are committed to the database after each record. So usually that's before a screen. So you can say like for our get records, it went ahead and did a transaction committed. So that's that transaction boundaries. So I don't necessarily see myself using that too much, but if you are more like coded minded, that's going to be more aligned with how you're kind of used to it. But yeah, you can turn those on and off, which is super nice. I really like that. Another cool feature is that you can like, first of all, drag and drop this whole thing to make it take up as much space as you want, which if you have like a really complex flow where you're doing a lot of stuff, that would be super helpful to do, to have it different, like changes out. And just the fact that it's on the same screen instead of a different tab, I'm really liking. You can also hit this here, it'll copy to your clipboard, and here, let me just open up you wouldn't do this to a Word doc, but I can go ahead and take a Word doc here and open that up, and we'll plop it over here so y'all can see it. And then if I paste, it'll paste this. So this will be really helpful as you create your test cases, if you need documentation and things like that of those different test cases, how it's working. If you're debugging and getting errors, and you need to compare what's causing errors, things like that, just being able to yeah, you can scroll down and try to copy all of it, but this will just go ahead and do it, the nice copy and paste for you. So I think that'll be really helpful for documentation on there. So that's it with a screen flow. So that's just kind of helpful. And then if I go ahead and hit edit flow, get back out of there, and we'll go to, this is a record triggered flow. So the difference between record triggered flows and screen flows is screen flows are usually started by like a button or a separate action, whereas record triggered flows are ran automatically when a change is made to the record. In this case, this one runs when an epic is created, and pretty much all this one does is default that epic name, right? So, but it's the same thing where you can go ahead and hit debug here, and it's going to pop up the thing on the side here. In this case, my epic is going to be my 667 here, or 677 here. So I'll just do 677, pull that in, grab that, and I'll debug here. Same thing where you can run as another user if you want to. This one automatically runs in rollback mode, so that's nice. It doesn't actually save those commits to the database. So I'm going to go ahead and hit run. And it does the same thing, right? So it does the thing where in this case, the flow only has one node, but if you did have a bunch of nodes, it would go through each one. So it shows me the conditions for the start conditions. In this case, it runs on everything. And then it shows me what actually happens. And it is a little bit more readable as well. So previously it was kind of hard to read these things because it was like over on the side. It was hard to do. Now, if I really need to see it, I can make it bigger. these different things. In this case, it just all this flow combines a few things with the formula, and it was already created, so it already had this kind of in here. But I wouldn't say this is the most successful test of this, but it's super helpful. We pulled this up, and then I'll show here the governor limits if I pop that in here. So governor limits are really, you don't want to have, I always say don't have too many pinks in a flow, because if you have like more than 10 or so, you're going to run into those governor limits. And now we kind of see, yeah, for my DML statements here, it has this. I can have 1 out of 150 and then DML rows. So if you're getting errors, like when you're running flows about like SOCO limits or timeout errors and things like that, being able to debug flows and see these governor limits will help you like troubleshoot those errors. So being able to see those on the flow, because usually you'd be able to see those if you're doing code, you're already going to kind of know and keep track of that in your logging and things like that. So this is just another way of Salesforce adding more code features to flow, because Salesforce is all about doing that clicks, not code. They don't want people to have to go through and get like a computer science degree or like software engineering degree in order to like do Salesforce work. So you can go ahead and clicks, not code, go ahead and get this, but you get the same information that you would otherwise. So kind of helpful there. I really appreciate them adding that. So that is the improved debugging experience. Really impressed with all this. And then it still has the same like convert to test here. So you don't have really tests on screen flows, but they have been pushing the testing things for record triggered flows. So you can still do the convert to test. That is still a thing. So oftentimes if you have like a few test cases that you know a flow needs to be able to pass when you're doing testing, in this case, this is a simple flow. So like being able to create a record and update it, that would probably be your one test. But if you have a flow that has like a bunch of decisions in it or something, you're going to want to test for each of those different ones. So you'd want to have a few different tests, and you could do that, convert to test, and then every time you add to your flow, you could run those same tests to make sure they still work. So that's what this convert to flow or convert to test is for. Salesforce is again trying to make it be more like code, because when you're doing code and things like that, you have to have test scripts and things like that. So I really like this improvement. Having it all on one screen is just it's so helpful. I'm really happy with that. Awesome. The other big change that they're coming to flow, which I am absolutely in love with, is let me do this edit flow. They have added compare versions of flow. So I'll show you this one. In this case, it's going to be a pretty simple one. I only have 2 versions, but I'm going to hit this compare versions one here. And you go ahead, it defaults to the one you were already on, so that one, and then I would go ahead and select this one. In this case, there's only 2 versions, so we'll do that. We go ahead and hit compare versions. And this is just going to show you the differences between the 2 flows. So anyone who's worked on flows knows, as you're working on a flow, knowing what you're changing between records, if you need to go back to a different version or things like that, knowing what changed, that kind of thing, can be kind of hard. Before, you would pretty much just have to look at the 2 versions, see what the differences are, or this one will lay them out here for you. So we have here, in this case, the actual flow properties. We view the details here. We just added a description. So that's what that one changed there. And then here, it looks like if I do details here, we updated the formula. So it shows me the previous version of the formula and then the new version of the formula. So I think that's super handy. We can kind of see those different versions. If I had more versions, it would show that as well. And then you can also check to only show changed versions, the changed item versus other items. So that's this one. I am going to show a more complex flow that we have here. It's going to be in a different org, so I'm just going to pop it over here. So this is a flow that's pretty intense. You can kind of see it. It's for an opportunity product, and based on opportunity product, it defaults some colors and things like that based off different things. So this flow goes on a while. It's a pretty big flow, one of the bigger flows that we kind of have. So another thing to note is this flow has 17 versions, right? So if I do compare versions with this one, I have a ton to compare. So I do compare versions. We're currently on 17. So like, let's maybe just compare 16 and 17 here. Compare versions. Let's see how many changes we have here. Okay, yeah. So I still have it where it's only showing me my changed items, but we still made a ton of updates here, right? So there were some things removed. There were some things updated. If I view these updates, we can see that this was equals true was removed, and this one is true was removed. So that's kind of cool here. There's another one, it changed the connector. So for this assign, we moved it from number runs to update and then changed to press instead. So shows me exactly here. And then I could still do, this is version 16 to 17, but let's say I want to really like dig in deep. What changes have we made like over the past 10 changes, like maybe 10 to 17? If I do change version, compare versions there, Oh man, we made a ton of changes since then. A lot of these ones didn't even exist in version 10. So all of these assigns and stuff are new. So just a way to like compare different things. So I think it's great. It kind of does a little bit at the top of summary stuff here. So it was last edited by me. These are the last dates it was edited, that kind of thing. The versions of the two ones, how many items were added, how many were updated, how many were changed, and how many were removed. So I think that's like summarizing that at the top is kind of cool. And then again, you can do the defaulted here. If I uncheck that, it'll show me all the items in the flow. And in this case, I mean, there's only 3 or 4 items that were not changed between these two versions. So, which makes sense because when you're going from version 10 to version 17, there's going to be a ton of changes between them. But yeah, really helpful. I'm really excited about this feature. I think it's going to be great. It's going to really help me in my daily life. Hopefully help y'all in y'all these daily lives. But yeah, super excited for the compare flow versions and go back and forth on those. So let me go ahead and check that up. And so those are the major changes coming for Flow that we wanted to highlight. So those are going to be the compare versions on Flow and then the improved debugging, which will all be helpful for admins. That is what I have to show. Chris, do we have any questions that came through?
Yeah, I would like to say if anybody does have any questions, please go ahead and enter them in the Q&A. Just click on the button up top. We do have a couple questions though. Mike, this is for you. Regarding the dashboard reference line, is that dynamic?
No, unfortunately not yet. It's something I think a lot of people and users want, but as of right now, the improvement is moving it from report charts only to be visible in dashboards, but it will remain static.
Okay, great. We actually just got a question from Christy. When you use the create as test in debugging Flow, does it auto name?
That is a great question. I don't know. We can do it real quick. Let me go back to my edit flow here. I will share screen again. Oh, I almost hit the wrong button. Okay, that would have been awful. Ending the vid. Okay, let's do this. There's too many buttons up there. Okay, let me go ahead and hit debug real quick. And then we'll do that same 677 here. And then hit run, and then it went fine. So I convert to test here. It does not automatically label your test, it looks like. So we'll just do like test here. And it does this. It does like you can like set some of these other things where you can go ahead and like choose your order, like the actual things of this is about the record that you're triggering with, like just like in code where you would set like value is this, value is this, value is this. Same thing when you're doing your test here. It would go ahead and like give you your, in this case, I really want to test it without the implementation because that's what it's going to be. The test of the flow is that it's adding that at the end. And then to make sure it's correct, we'd go ahead and make sure that like the name equals the name, right? So it does not auto name it. You kind of set all these things up as you're doing those testings. Are you creating that test? So it does not auto name, but it is like pretty handy. Like you go through, you create the record that you want to trigger the test. You're making sure the assertions is going to be how to tell if this is fails or passes, right? So not that one, but great question. Thanks.
Thanks, Adele. Adele, why don't we stay on you?
Oh, cool.
You know, we're hearing a lot about Salesforce breaches lately and the connected app changes. Can you talk on that a little bit?
Yes, let me go ahead actually and share screen again here. So what's been going on with Salesforce is there has been a ton of breaches lately. A lot of those, the big one is like Google, right? So someone at Google was socially engineered to download an incorrect connected app. And connected apps are where you connect a third party to your Salesforce. And when you connect a third party to your Salesforce, they get access to your Salesforce. And it wasn't really as regulated as it is now. So because of those like breaches, people were connecting third party apps that shouldn't be connected and they were getting access to their data was the cause. Since it was such a big problem and Google's such a big client for Salesforce, they reacted quickly. So this is something that's happened within the last month, and Salesforce made these changes live within weeks. So they're definitely trying to handle this and get a hold of it. And one of those changes is they're going to manage connected apps usage a lot more. So you can kind of see on this, if you're in setup, you go to connected app usage. We're recommending, and Salesforce is recommending, that you go through this list and block any that are you don't want your users using. And if you want users to continue using it, so like for example, data loader, we internally use data loader to do any mass updates through Salesforce. If you want to have your users continue to use those, you're going to want to go ahead and install it. We have already done that. Install is already clicked here. So now we can uninstall it. Going forward, starting actually last Tuesday on the 2nd, if you want people to be able to use your connected apps, they need to be installed, or users need to have an additional permission given to them. So I actually went to a webinar a little bit ago and have this little thing that I wanted to show. So this is kind of what I'm talking about. You want to go through that connected apps, view them. If they are trusted apps that you want your users to be able to continue using, go ahead and install them, block ones that are untrusted. And then this is the new permission. So if you want people to, let's say you have like a research and development team that you want to go ahead and they can still install apps that are not like already installed, you're going to give them this permission, this approved uninstall connected apps going forward, so that they have that permission to uninstall those apps. Otherwise, when they try to connect to Salesforce, they're going to get an error and get it blocked there. So admins will already have this permission, and we recommend like you give this with care. We don't just give it out willy-nilly necessarily. But yeah, if you have users that are like on a research development team or something like that that need access to those kind of things, go ahead and give them this new permission, and then just go through this the connected app OAuth usage. Make sure that's what's in here is things that you want your users to be using, and install those that you do and block those that you don't.
Great. Thank you, Adele. Really appreciate that. I think, Mike, turning back to you, will deprecating workflows mean they'll stop working?
No. It just means that Salesforce is no longer going to support them. So if you have workflows where you're typically reaching out to Salesforce to ask questions, debug, they're no longer going to provide that kind of support. But the workflows themselves will continue to work. It does put a good line in the sand to say this is an excellent time to start considering switching over any sort of workflows or process builders that you have to flows. Salesforce a while ago did implement a converter tool. It'll work with very straightforward process builders or flows, but it doesn't work with all of them, especially if they're multi-object. So we've helped a lot of clients transition workflows and process builders over to more modern flows. We've been able to consolidate and actually create more efficiency in their process as well. But no, you'll still be able to use your workflows and process builders.
Okay, great. And I think that's all the questions that we have right now. Mike, I think we have one more slide. Is that correct?
I believe we do.
And that should bring us to the end of the webinar. So we want to thank everybody for joining today to listen about the Salesforce Winter 26 release. If you have any questions about Sikich and our Salesforce experience and expertise, please use the QR code that's on your screen right now. If you are new to Sikich, I am the account executive for the Salesforce team. Please feel free to reach out to me. Or if you are an existing client and Courtney is your client engagement manager, please reach out to her. We'd love to hear from you and maybe set something up to talk about some of our AI capabilities that we've been working with a lot of clients with. So thank you, everybody. Have a great day.